Story 1. AITA for not buying my cousin something to eat when we went to the beach. I, F25, took my cousin, F6, and my kids, M4 and F6, to the beach this past weekend. I offered to take my cousin because she's around the same age as my kids and they get along great, so I thought it would be fun. While we were there, we went out to eat. My cousin is extremely picky, and anytime I buy her food while we're out or cook anything, she takes a few bites and throws the rest away. I told her I was not buying her any food and that her and I could share something and she could have as much of it as she'd like. Well, she didn't like that because I got my kids their own meals, which they ate all of. I did let my cousin choose something we both liked. We ended up sharing anyways, and I thought she took a few bites and then said she was full. The rest of the day was fine. Well, flash forward to after I drop her back home. I get a text from my aunt asking why I didn't buy her own meal and that my cousin is telling her we shared while my kids didn't. I explained the situation to her and she told me I could have packed her food up to go if she didn't eat it. But I don't see the issue seeing as she did exactly what I thought she would do, and she also had other food throughout the day that we packed, such as snacks and sandwiches. So AITA? Edit. My cousin was not singled out. My kids have also had to share meals until they could finish a meal by themselves. My cousin has been out with us plenty of times and has also seen my kids share meals either with me and my partner or between themselves. I've always gotten my cousin her own meals, but I was tired of food going to waste. My cousin is simply spoiled and has a mum who never tells her no to anything, but I don't do that with my own kids, so I won't do it with her. She gets treated the same as my own kids do. We also got ice cream before we left, which she got her own of because she apparently always has room for sweets.
In my opinion, she is not an asshole. What do you think? Comment below.
Story 2. AITA. For giving my mom the silent treatment after I found out she was pregnant, I will try to be as direct as possible. I, 20F, always had a complicated relationship with my mother. Throughout my childhood, she always had problems with addiction. Basically, what I remember from my childhood with her is living with her until things got so bad that our family had to step in, moving in with them, my mom getting better, then moving back in with her only for her to get worse and the cycle to start all over again. However, since I was 13, I live with my uncles. They are incredible and they have always been the parents I needed, but since then my mother has not asked me to stay with her again. My uncles always explained that she had a disease and her leaving me with them was proof of her love for me. You can imagine that my relationship with her has always been complicated, but I've always tried to understand that this is something that is out of her control. In the last months, she's been on a good streak again, stopping all that shit. She's moved in with a new boyfriend and he seems to be someone that wants to help her out. We don't see each other much, but I try to call her at least every 15 days, and my parents always try to report to me about her improvements. However, last week, after a long time, she was the one that called me and asked me to go out. I tried not to get too excited because I already know what she's like, but at the same time, I was happy. When we met, she explained how her boyfriend has helped her to cut 100% contact with anyone who influences her to go back to addiction, and how she wants to be a better person. She even started therapy and went to rehab for a while. I said I was very happy and asked what finally motivated her to make that decision. And then she told me that he helped her, but that the big motivator that gave her strength is that they decided to start a family, and that she wanted to meet me in person to let me know that she is pregnant. She said she needed to be better, to be present, and that is what is helping her focus on recovery. It hurt me, that they were worth it, but I wasn't. I decided to leave before our lunch was even over and ignored all forms of contact from her thereafter. As people say, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. However, yesterday her boyfriend called me. I answered because I didn't have his number saved, and he started yelling at me. He said I was an asshole, that for him I would never have contact with his family, because apparently no one knows where my mom is and what hindered her improvement was my attitude. My grandparents are also angry with me, and said that I am very irresponsible, and that I didn't have emotional responsibility with someone very vulnerable. My parents said I didn't do anything wrong, but I have my doubts. AITA?
I do not think she's an asshole. What do you think? Comment below. Story 3. AITA for walking out on a date I didn't know I was on. My 39M relationship of 11 years with my ex ended 3 and a bit years ago. I decided then that was the last relationship for me and I didn't want a relationship again. Life isn't all that bad. For some reason, though, people have started to get a bit weird about it, especially my colleagues. And mainly women. I can't work that one out, as the dudes I know are a lot more chill about it usually, who think they know better than me, tell me I don't want to get lonely, am a great catch, have a lot to offer, etc. I had such a discussion like it a couple of weeks ago at work, particularly with one colleague, S30F, who talks about it a lot, and IDKY because she's married. S is leaving, and because we're friends, I was going to meet her on Monday for a coffee/meal. So I turn up, and she's not there, so I text her. As I do, and I think I'm waiting, I see an old colleague, A, who both me and S used to work with in other jobs. So I say hi to A, and make small talk for a bit, and I say something like, I wonder where S is. A goes, I don't know what you mean, I thought the date was between us two. I then put two and two together and realize S set me up on a date without me realizing, and A thinking I know I'm on a date. So I say basically to A, sorry, but I'm leaving, sorry S wasted her time, and go. I then ring S and she doesn't answer, so I send her a really angry text. Later I get a call from her asking what happened. I told her. She ignored all my anger and went, so you walked out on A? What the fuck? That's so not cool, you should have at least stayed. I ignored her and hung up. I got into work the next day and everyone knows as she's already told them, and they said I shouldn't have went mad as S was only doing me a favor. One colleague in particular said he would have loved to go on a date with someone as hot as A. Presumably he's seen a picture then. I then get DIY therapy advice. I'm wasting my life, shouldn't be lonely, need therapy, etc. I told them to fuck off and stop watching Dr. Phil. Today the atmosphere is really icy. AITA For it all, edited to add an update. You're all right. Poor A had no idea at all. So I've just dropped her a line on her LinkedIn. It's the only contact details I have for her. And apologized for my reaction, explained why, and said it's no reflection on her at all. She didn't deserve that. Second update. Just heard back from A on LinkedIn. She said I have nothing to apologize for. She totally understands and said she's absolutely livid with S. I replied back thanking her for understanding, and I have no idea why, but I invited her for a coffee so we could catch up properly. I wasn't expecting to do that, but I did. I do not think he is an asshole. What do you think? Comment below. Story 4. AITA for asking my grandparents how they can be so cruel after they accused my mom of the same. 2 years ago, my parents' marriage ended because my mom found out dad was cheating and had another woman pregnant. My sisters and I, 17M, 15F, and 14F, wanted nothing to do with dad afterward, and he was not given any formal custody. It was a decision left for us to decide if we wanted to see him. We didn't. He had a daughter with the other woman a year ago. Now their daughter was taken by CPS and is currently sitting in foster care. My grandparents, dad's parents, want my mom to raise her so we will know her and so she will have us growing up. Mom said no. At the same time, they were trying to pressure us to accept visits with her so she'll know us anyway, but my sisters and I are not interested. My guess is they want us to meet her, so we'll ask Mom to raise her. Mom did get a call and was asked if she would take her by a social worker, but her no was the last contact we had with the social worker. We only had contact once before that where she was asked if visits between us and the girl were wanted. They weren't. My mom tries to keep me and my sisters out of it, but I have heard her lose her cool and answer the phone to tell my grandparents to leave her alone. I also heard my grandparents call her names and remind her over and over that my sisters and I are related to this girl and Mom should want us to know each other and be close. I heard Mom cry the other night, so I called my grandparents and told them to leave my mom alone. They tried to defend themselves, but I told them to stop. I brought up them calling my mom cruel earlier that day, and I asked them how they could be cruel. I asked why didn't they take their granddaughter, and why do they want her to be somewhere she's not wanted, or loved, or cared about. They spluttered over the phone, but I didn't let them really speak, and I told them that's exactly what they're trying to set her up for. And it's not good. I told them none of us want her here or want a relationship, and they're the cruel ones trying to force her in here anyway. They went crazy yesterday over what I said. Mom finally blocked them, but they're also trying to make themselves heard via social media. AITA? I do not think he is an asshole. What do you think? Comment below.
Story 5. AITA for being partial towards my kids. So I, 27F, had 3 kids, 6M, 3F, and a newborn A with my husband, 33M. Due to some unforeseen circumstances, we took in my friend's son, B, who was born one day after my last kid. Naturally, we've had to rebudget since this wasn't planned, and money is a bit tight right now. We had to cut down on a bunch of things, and though we tried to avoid it, so did the kids. My husband had been trying to find a better job, but he hadn't had much luck. Cut to a few months later, my husband just landed a better job and my meal invited us to dinner. At one point, while my husband and Phil were talking, my meal asked about the kids, and from there we spiraled until she went off on me about how A gets new clothes, so did the older ones, but B gets hand-me-downs. B has to drink formula, but I breastfeed A, and did so for all her older siblings, etc. etc. How I'm being unfair towards B just because he isn't my biological son, that I'm being partial towards my biological kids, and that makes me a really bad mother. I felt hurt because I'd been trying to make sure it wouldn't come off that way. We just bought new clothes for both A and B, and both had to take hand-me-downs previously. We've tried to keep things fair. I ended up crying and we went home. My Mill texted right after, saying there was no need to be so emotional when she was just telling the truth, and I didn't let her son have a nice dinner in peace. I feel guilty for my husband having to leave dinner early, and I didn't mean to turn things that way. Meal wants me to apologize, but my husband asked me not to apologize unless I think I'm wrong. This whole thing is making me feel like a bad mother, and I don't know if I'm in the wrong here. So, AITA? Edit. I told my husband I'm not going to apologize, and he thinks it's the right decision. Many comments have brought it up, so just to clarify, he was having a conversation with someone else while this was going on. Once he noticed that I was crying and his mother was berating me, he said we're leaving and drove us back home. He thinks his mother is completely in the wrong, and the only reason to apologize is to maintain the relationship, which he's never been interested in.
I do not think she's an asshole. What do you think? Comment below. Subscribe for more interesting stories.